500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die.
The Phantom,
the ghost who walks,
the Phantom,
enemies beware, the Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds you.
G'day everyone. For those who came in late, you're listening to Expand, the Fantomen Podcast. This is episode 143, the comics and news for February of 2020. My name is Dan Fraser and I'm joined today by Jermaine Parker. How are you, Jermaine?
Tired, but no, very good. This is our second podcast for the weekend, about our fourth video that we've done, and we've done a fair bit of work on some stuff. So it's been a fairly big Fantomen weekend.
It has, and I think I suspect we missed the January 2020 podcast, Comics and News. Certainly the fact that we're reviewing the Christmas special probably indicates that. But as you've just said, we've been very busy doing some Fantoming. And so this weekend, just briefly, it'll go straight into our first topic. What would you have, in 10 words or less, what have you been working on regarding the Bushfire book, I guess, especially is what we're talking about?
Well, just the final order of all of the images, the 50-odd artists that we've got, finite little details, and making sure all those little copyright little seeds are where they need to be. It would have been a lot easier being unlicensed.
Well, that was a pretty fun phone call I had yesterday with the people who we need to talk to, I suppose, because it's exciting that we can announce that it is being licensed. It's a Kingfisher Syndicate licensed book now. And I guess that means it'll be a little bit longer than we had hoped initially, because there's an approval process in place. But the good news is, as you say, you've just about finished the order of the artists. Fair to say 99% of the artists have submitted. We are waiting on
two.
Hey?
There's always one or two. Yeah.
But we've seen great progress on both of those, and we're not really waiting because there's lots of other things to do while those other things come in. And between going through and editing the copy, which I've been doing, and trying to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and as you say, the copyrights and the trademarks are all in the right place. It's given us a new respect for what Frew and Dudley and Mickael and Andreas and Dan and Sabrina and Owen do around the world. It's fair to say.
Yeah. You would only do it with a passion,
Yes.
and a love of the character. But what can we tell our listeners? Because I'm sure the listeners are, doing double takes and pressing rewind to make sure that they listen to certain things. So what can we tell them before we do the big announcement? Let's give them a little bit of a tidbit.
All right. So, price. I guess a window. We can give a price window.
Yep.
I'll do that then. So $30 to $40 is what we're thinking. Is that? Have I just taken your breath away there, Jermaine?
No. I'm just thinking we did practice and rehearse this, but obviously that didn't help. And
well, I can edit it out. What did I miss up? What did I mess up?
No. I'm just making fun. It's fun. So,
okay. It was entirely possible I'd messed up.
So there's about I guess the things that I'm excited about is that it's licensed. There's about 50 different pieces of artwork. It's going to be affordable, and you'll be able to buy it soon. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. As we said last time we talked about it, certainly end of February, middle of March at the latest sort of thing is where we're aiming for. The approval process, as I've said, it doesn't throw a spanner in the works. It just throws an extra thing in the works, and we're just not sure how long that's going to take. As we said last time, patrons, if you're a patron at the time of printing, and you probably have missed that boat if you by the time you listen to this, because we'd like to think it's into the printers by the time the podcast comes out. So all of the Patreons who our patrons as we speak are going to be listed in the back of the book, and they'll also have 24 hours heads up on the book being available to get their orders in. And looking forward to, I'm just looking forward to being able to flick through it for a YouTube video and to get it out to everybody else to see, because a lot of the pictures have appeared online, and I think that's been really good to see the interest that purchasers have shown in terms of donating to Red Cross or other bushfire appeals in order to purchase the original art. I'm really excited about how much money has been raised just before the book even comes online. What about you?
Yeah, we're talking about 5 figures now, basically. There's been 10,000 that has been raised with the sale of the artwork, which is amazing. So, by the time this book has been printed and sold, we could well be looking at 20,000 that is donated from the Phantom community, which is amazing.
That's staggering.
It is. But there's some other exciting news coming out as well. So,
yeah, absolutely. So we'll move on. We're not going to dwell on the book all day, because when it does come out, we're going to have a special little podcast, obviously, because we're going to be a bit excited. But the other thing we want to bring, so that's news out of Australia. Coming out of Sweden, Mickael Lyck and his card game. What can you tell us about that, Jim?
Okay, well, I don't want to give too much away, but we did hear back in December about the Kickstarter, and we've been hearing updates that it is coming along quite nicely. And there's a Chronicle Chamber exclusive to do with that, with Mickael's card game. And again, if you're a Patreon, you get the exclusive. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
And there's going to be about 70, and that's all I'm going to say. Just watch this space.
Well, I just got a message on my screen saying my internet connection is unstable, and I fear that you were probably more mysterious than you intended to be because of my dodgy internet. But basically, you said something about 70. What did you say there?
Yeah, so basically there's going to be 70 of this something cool that's going to be able to be done with the card game, and Patreons are going to be included in that 70. So if you're a Patreon, you get this something cool, and that's all we're going to say. You just have to watch this space.
Absolutely. Yeah, very good. But in terms of the general listeners, the card game is looking like being a Kickstarter campaign.
Yes, it is a Kickstarter, which Mickael told us. They're doing the finishing touches of that. When the Kickstarter basically is ready, I think we're looking at. I'm not 100% sure on the date, but when it's been settled, we're going to have Mickael and probably maybe even the whole team maybe on and talk about the game properly, and then that's going to be a special podcast for the Kickstarter campaign as well. So it's exciting, but it also means that a lot of fans, especially if you go to Supernova and stuff in June, you're going to have to do some extra work around the house to be able to afford what's coming out between now and then.
I must say though, we've been lucky enough to see some of the proofs of some of the cards that Mickael is producing, and again, it's a officially licensed product. It's got access to the full catalogue of Phantom resources of anything that's been licensed and published, and Mickael has made full use of it. And I think the variety of cards, the variety of images, just look really exciting from a collector's point of view, let alone thinking it's also a card game that we can play. So once again, it's going to be one of those things where I probably need to get at least 2 copies, one that I can take out of the packet and play with and enjoy and share, and another one that probably take out of the packet and maybe frame on the wall to look at some of the cards. So
yeah, or you may even have to get one and actually put it into your trade paper, your trading card folder.
Yeah,
because each card is going to be an awesome little piece of Phantom artwork.
Yeah, absolutely. So very much looking forward to that. Now, speaking of awesome pieces of Phantom artwork, that's a really nice segue. Well done. I'm very excited to be able to talk about the new side barrier print that's been released about a month ago, I suppose, and it has gone very much, it was sort of announced in a flash and then went on the back burner necessarily. But the sunset salute picture that Side Barry has brought out as a special limited edition print. If you haven't seen the print yet, you should certainly jump on the website and check it out. It's a really cool image, and one that's fashioned after the deleted last scene from the Phantom movie, the 1996 Phantom movie. So, I think it's a really cool scene. It's got the Phan on a rearing hero sort of waving at a departing biplane as it flies into the sunset, and just looks really, really cool, I reckon.
Yeah, it is. Now, you're getting a pile of these posters. Do you still have some posters that haven't been sold yet?
Well, they haven't arrived yet. The last I heard was a couple of days ago that they've been printed and they're at Side Barry's house, and he was signing them and numbering them, and he was going to send a 25 over to me so that Australian purchasers, I guess, can go through me rather than through them, and we all save on the postage. So basically, I'll forward the money over to Cy and David, but everybody saves on the postage is the idea. So yes, I do. There have been quite a number that have been claimed. Right up front, there are 10 that have already been spoken for, which I actually think is pretty cool, given that there's been so much Phantom art on the market recently through the book, and lots of people have been spending money on that. The print's not cheap. There's no doubt about that. And so for 10 people to have jumped on board on the back of one website post, one Facebook post, and one tweet, basically, I'm pretty happy with, which means there's another 15. So if you're listening to this and you've seen the print and you like the idea of it, then by all means get in touch with me via the links that are on the website.
Definitely.
All right.
About Phantom movies.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like this has been planned, the way we're jumping from thing to thing. Very exciting news, and we need to...
Yeah, whoever wrote the run sheet knew what he was doing.
What do they say about 1,000 monkeys on 1,000 typewriters? It's got to get right eventually. Yes. A new Phantom movie. Now, this is something that once the Bushfire book is behind us, I'm looking forward to putting a bit more energy into exploring this and finding out a bit more about this, because this could be very, very exciting from what little we know. And Jermaine, you're closer to the Indian market than I am, and you have daily chats with Indian friends, and probably have got a much better handle on what's going on here. But to tell us exactly how big is this really, a Phantom movie that's coming out of India, probably in the next 12 months, 18 months.
Yeah, to be honest, there hasn't been much since the news initially broke. I guess the good news is, if anyone who has read the article on the website written by Swaroop, who we've got a podcast coming out next, he goes into a little bit of detail about who these two gentlemen are that are actually involved and have signed it on the dotted line and got their names attached to this movie. Now, to be honest, it is something we probably need to look at a little bit more. And I guess it was kind of like the initial news, and then what probably happens is we probably won't hear anything for 6 months, and then there might actually be something. So it's definitely, if you have missed, if you've been living under a rock and you've missed the news, head over to our website, because it's definitely worth checking out. Now, don't think a Bollywood dance sequel type of movie. The Indian Bollywood scene is more than just cheesy musicals with some fancy little dancing with turning on the light bulbs and stuff like that. There is more to it than that. They've been producing some brilliant movies and stuff like that. These creators are talented. They know what they're doing. This could be exciting news. What it means regarding with one thing I would want to explore is this just a license for the Indian market, or is it like a worldwide license? So, you know, there's all these type of questions which, you know, we've still got to look into. Is Billy Zane involved? Is it, you know, going to be a part of that? Is it going to be a canon? Is it going to be a reboot? A lot of water still to go under the bridge, but it is exciting news. It is good. I'm excited. And yeah, when we know more, you will know more.
I think the key thing there is, and you said it a couple of times, it's a Bollywood movie, and yes, that does have some baggage, I guess, in terms of what people might have impressions of that. But it's a, you know, as you've said, there's a lot of serious movies now coming out of that movie production area of the world, and what it really means is there's some serious budget behind this. So it's not, I guess the point to make is that it's not the same as the 40-minute video that Cholaman Ashuri, which was, I really enjoyed that student film that has gone up, and we've got podcasts reviewing that and providing commentaries of that in the past, and we both really enjoyed that. But this is actually a bigger budget, genuine movie with backing and experienced professionals, not a student film, as we're saying.
Yeah. Like, if you Google the dude who's in charge of it, he's like one of the richest men in the world, one of the most influential people in that part of the world and stuff like that, been voted, you know, as one of the most influential people. He's owned sporting teams and sporting franchises and stuff like that. So, you know, dropping a couple $100 million or whatever is just pocket change for him.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're very much looking forward to being able to tell you more about that as we find out more. We do need to move on, though, to publisher news from around the world. And the big news, I guess, at the moment for the start of 2020 is all out of Sweden and, Sweden, Scandinavia, Northern Europe there. And to start with, we need to acknowledge that 2020 is the 70th anniversary for Fantomen Comics. Huge deal, and a very happy birthday, Fantomen. Congratulations and well done.
Yeah, it's kind of crept up on a lot of people. I don't know if people remember when we interviewed Mickael Lyck last year. We actually asked him about it, and he was like, "Oh, it's the 70th. I'm going to have to start thinking about that." Well, they have obviously started thinking about it because I reckon there's going to be a few. I don't know everything, but I reckon there's going to be a few nice little surprises throughout the year that we are going to see. I would like to see what I personally would like to see, and as someone who is a subscriber to the magazine, is I would like to see some extras, you know, giveaways or something like that as well. We've seen the print by Jamie Val. You know, there's a brilliant story about that on our website. They've actually been publishing some Frew stories, but it'll be interesting to see what else they bring out.
Absolutely. No, any time you can tick the box and say you got to 70, it's certainly better than not having got there. So, exciting to see what they might do. And just the fact that the very first comic of the year came out with that. So I understand that the first comic of every year has a publishing schedule type poster, but this one is particularly unique in the fact that it's got this original artwork from. It's got artwork from Jamie that no one's ever seen before. So a really good way to kick off the year.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a nice little story about how that came about as well. You can read the highlights of that on our website, of course. It's good to see a little bit of care, something a little special and stuff. And as a consumer who likes things, Phantom, I would like to see more of it.
Yeah, no worries at all. Well, while they're looking forward to 2020, as you listen to this, you've probably got about a week or so left to vote in looking back at Fantomen 2019, because the best cover competition is open at the moment. Now, I assume you've jumped on and voted there, Jermaine?
To be honest, I haven't. I've fallen a little bit behind on some of the things. So just so
that's because of this Bushfire book, I
Yeah,
suspect.
exactly. And work's been painful as well. So there's 2 votes at the moment. There's the best story, which that ends on the 19th of February, and then there's the best cover, which is just opened. So for a lot of us and fans, they probably don't participate in the best story as much because it's hard to judge a story if it hasn't been in a Frew comic yet. However, with the best cover, it's a little bit easier to make a vote for because you can go onto Fantomen Wiki and have a look at the covers there. And there's always some brilliant ones. There's a lot of covers from Henrik Sellstrom. There's a couple from Rafael Ruiz, Salvaludo and Eugenio, and then there's also one by Jan Bilecki as well. And there's some really nice covers. So go onto our website or go to Fantomen Wiki, and then you'll be able to have a look at some of the covers and have a vote. And there are prizes. You can get like a tote bag with the cover. Now, if you just give me 1 second, I'll show you what that kind of looks like, because I do actually have what from... So a tote bag, if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. It's just like a library bag, I guess. And it's got basically the cover that has been voted as the top one, as the most favourite. It will be put onto the bag and then it will be posted. Now these can be posted to international winners, so you don't have to pay extra or anything like that. So that's basically what the winner will get. I think I've got 1 or 2 of those, so I know that they do ship them out to international. So yeah, so
now,
that's something.
Are you still using plastic bags over there in WA? Have they been outlawed yet, or?
Yeah, they've been outlawed. Plastic bags.
So you'll be using that one to go down and get the bread and milk of a morning, surely?
Yeah, no.
All right. Well, speaking of votes and best of last year's, since we recorded our December Comics and News, or the best of 2019, the Frew best of surveys have closed. So we probably do need to at least make mention of those and go through the results. Well, I might hand over to you. I suppose we need to actually give the results, don't we, so that everybody knows quite clearly. So in terms of the best cover, the cover that won was 1832 Hero Complex with Jeff Weigel as the artist there. So congratulations, Jeff, to have your first, I think, Frew cover take best cover of the year is fantastic, and a huge credit to you. A Day at the Races was second to issue 1850 by Tessa. That was the retro cover, and Tessa, what's the word for posthumously, has won second place in the 2020 cover of the year, and third place, we'll just do the top 3, was the 1830 annual special by Wendell Cavalcanti. So congratulations, Wendell. In terms of the best stories, Hero Complex won that as well, with Duncan Munro obviously as the writer and Jeff Weigel as story artist as well. So the double there for Jeff and the double there for Hero Complex. A Day at the Races also takes second in the best story. The writer and artist of that, of course, being Matt Kime. In third place, though, there was something new, a tie for third in best story, and that's Phantom Goes to War from issue 1831, which is the annual, of course, the war special, the full unedited version of Phantom Goes to War by Lee Falk and Ray Moore from way back in the day, and one that surprised me a little bit with The Man Who Cannot Die, which was a short filler story, really. I think 4 pages maybe, in issue 1852, written by Philip Madden and by art by Jeremy McPherson. So that's Jeremy's first published Phantom story as opposed to cover. We've seen a lot of his cover art, but fantastic, and congratulations there to you, Jeremy, finishing in third for the best story. And finally, best Frew issue. In first place was 1832. So issue 1832 has taken out best cover, best story, and then, I guess, unsurprisingly, best issue. And that's the Hero Complex and Prince Rex Kidnapped double. Very first issue. No, it wasn't very. I think it might have been the third issue of the year, fourth issue of the year in 2019. The annual special, issue 1830, with the war theme, came in second, and third was the one we've also mentioned a couple of times, was A Day at the Races by Matt Kime. So those were our top three. Pretty consistent voting there, Jermaine. What did you make of the results? Give us your 3-minute analysis of the best of 2019 votes.
Okay, this was so last month. It's interesting that I guess probably the three of maybe the five special issues that Frew released got a lot of the votes, i.e. like, Matt Kime's, the Hero Complex, and then also the annual. So, like there were some special issues that were released. That creates hype, which is good. And I liked that there was some cracking stuff last year. For myself, the annual was probably my highlight, but some of those were not far behind as well. I was surprised not surprised, that's probably a bad way of putting it, but I was encouraged, is probably a better way, to see Jeremy and Philip's short story, because one, I liked both of their work, and they've both been guests on our podcast before, but also because, and I'm going to make mention of this later on when we review, but The Heart of Darkness is spluttering towards an end, and maybe, this should give hope to us readers, but also to Frew, that you can have a good little filler story that actually can poll quite well in the year. And it was obviously a lot of people enjoyed the read, so that was encouraging to see as well.
The fact that Blood Rain, I think it was second for best story for Fantomen in 2018, was eighth in the Australian poll, but was also, I guess, interestingly, the only it was the top ranked Scandinavian story and the only one to feature in the top 10.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think Australians like Australian stuff. Australians are very patriotic. We're a bit like the Americans in the sense that, we like our stuff better, even if it's, I'm not careful with what I say here, but even if it's not as good as the other stuff, we will like it better because it's our stuff, and we want to lay claim of that. And I think Frew readers are enjoying having their own Australian created stuff, whether it's created by Australians or not. It's Australian. You know what I mean? Because it's Frew created, and it goes to show that the Frew readers enjoy that. And so I think that's what I take from that, is that, we're very patriotic, and we're not ashamed of voting for our own stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because only 4 years ago, there were no Australian created or Frew commissioned stories coming through. So the new Frew crew coming through have started that, and it's clearly really, really popular in terms of the votes. Unfortunately, we weren't running the best of votes back then, so we've got no idea what the voting would have looked like in that sense. But it just, as you say, it does prove that Australian audiences enjoy those Australian created stories. And as you mentioned earlier, they're starting to get some traction in Scandinavia as well, with Frew stories getting picked up and published by Fantomen. So, yeah, that's a really positive sign, and I hope good justification and a point of satisfaction for Glenn and Dudley and Renee as the Frew crew.
That's a very good point.
All right. Any other comments on the surveys there? Were you surprised that sort of The Caliph as a graphic novel didn't feature higher? It was 5th in terms of best issue. It was 10th in terms of best story, and cover did not feature in the top 10. So 10th best story and 5th best issue. That's still not bad for a venture into the graphic novel world.
I think Frew would be happy with that. I've said it in my review that the cover was not my most favourite of the actual comic or the graphic novel. That was probably my least favourite part of the whole complete package. So I'm not surprised to see that, you know, with those numbers you said, 10th and 5th, you have to be happy with that. You know, not everything could be first. Well, you know, if everything was first, there'll be some seriously dodgy, dodgy little accounting work from us on behalf of that. But yeah, so I would be happy with that from Frew, and yeah, I would be very happy with probably the results.
Well, there was over 300 people voted again. So again, it just goes to show that while Frew does not have necessarily the audience size that a Marvel or a DC Comics have, of all of the readers, the people who are prepared to take the time and who are online as well, and then prepared to take the time to fill out the survey, I thought that was a pretty good collection of a good statistical sample, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't like 50 or 100 people. It was a good sample. I read somewhere that the Fantomen votes get anywhere between 300 and 500 every year for the last couple of years.
Well, patriotic Australians, if you're as jingoistic as Germ reckons earlier, then that's a challenge. 500, eh? All right, let's try and get to that for the best of 2020 vote in about 11 months from now.
Yeah, maybe we'll replay that bit or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I might get my passport taken off me.
All right, we should move on because we've spent about 10 minutes on that. And we said a couple of minutes each, so we need to move on. The Mallon anniversary edition is in here. So we have published a story on chroniclechamber.com about some plans that Mallon have. They're an Australian publisher who in the past have done the calendars and the diaries that people have loved. And, fair to say some people have mixed relationships with them, but a lot of people have loved the diaries and the calendars. And they're a big part of us growing up, I think, and becoming Phantom collectors. So that company is looking at an anniversary edition. What excites me about this is that it's, someone's noticed that an anniversary is coming. So next year, almost a year from today, as we speak, it will be the Phantom's 85th birthday, and so to hear that people are out there planning for the anniversary is good news in itself.
Yeah, I kind of hope we see something like a Kickstarter or something like that, because I think that will probably gain a lot more interest than what we've seen released from them so far. So I must admit, I'm as a Phantom fan, not wearing my Chronicle Chamber hat, wearing my Phantom fan hat. I'm kind of sitting on the fence waiting for a little bit more information before I get excited about it.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, what we do know is that there's plans for 2 levels, I guess, of book. One that would be pretty similar to, a newsagent. It's going to be sold in newsagents. They're looking at something like between 100 and 180 perhaps pages. There's probably concrete details, isn't there, on the website? Here's me speculating, and I should probably just go back and read the article. But anyway, you can do that. I'm on a podcast. I'm too busy to go back and read articles. You can do that. Press pause. So they're looking at about between 100 and 180 page book, a newsagent version, but also a deluxe edition for collectors, and obviously a price variant in between those. At the moment, some of the feedback I've had is that the price point on the collector's edition is probably a bit high for people. But again, it's a bit what you're saying there, Jermaine. People aren't sure what the content of the book is going to be yet. So probably sort of keeping their powder dry while they wait to see exactly what the content of the book is going to be, and whether in their minds then it justifies the price point.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. watch this space, I guess, for that one, and hopefully we'll be able to share more on that soon. Anyway, we need to get into reviewing the comics, the actual comics. That's why we're here. Unless I've missed any other news? Any other news, Jerm?
No, that's good. Let's go.
Cool. All right. Well, we might pass over right now then to Mickael Lyck, he of the Phantom card game that we were referring to earlier, as he does a bit of a review for us and for us all on some of the first 3 Fantomen stories of 2020. We'll hand it over to you. Thank you very much, Mickael.
So let's start up with 2020's Fantomen reviews. So it's a new year. The year of no reprints is over, and this year is the 70th anniversary of the Fantomen comic book. It starts out quite slow in my opinion, with a story that's been reprinted multiple times. A good and solid story, and nice to see it in color for first time. The Ghost Pirates, written by Norman Walker and art by James Valvey. But for me, I know the story almost by heart. The cover is really nice, as usual, made by Henrik Sahlström. The book also includes this new schedule poster with art by Valvey. There's also a short story about this image. It's been shared on the Chronicle Chambers news homepage. And there's a second story that is a classic Falk McCoy story, Danglore, International Bank Thief. Quite short story, and most of it takes place on the boat. I really enjoy the classics though, and this has not been published in a Fantomen comic earlier, so that was quite cool. And the second comic book, number 2 and 3, also with a cover by Henrik Sahlström. Mine is a bit damaged from the mailman, but cool cover. The first story, Uppgörelse med Nomaden, A Reckoning with the Nomad, by Tony DePaul and Mike Manley. Great newspaper story with Heloise at the wheel, action and suspense, and a long page count made it a real treat. I really enjoyed this story. And then there was the second story was Brevet från Himalaya, Kit's Letter Home, by Tony DePaul and Mike Manley also. This one is really short, and it's, let's see, the first story is so long. Yeah, it's short, and it basically only flashbacks to earlier episodes, so nothing to talk about really. But then a Frew published story in Fantomen. This is huge, and I hope there will be more of these ones. Kärlek i djungeln, as it's called in Swedish, Jungle Love, by Pidda Andersson and Shane Foley. And not only is it the full story unedited, but it's so unedited it includes these panels that wasn't included in the Frew publications. I guess they planned on having this the story before to end a bit earlier, so they would have space for it, but they didn't, so we actually got more in Sweden, so that's great. And I really enjoyed this story. It has so many funny jokes and Easter eggs. It really felt like a special treat. And then the issue featured the competition for Best Story of 2019. I wrote a short article about it on the Chronicle Chamber. There it is. I have not yet voted. I think it's quite hard, since for me no story stood out as the greatest like the last year. But there are some important stories for the Team Fantomen, like A New Hope, and in a lesser degree, Devil in Stockholm. And then there's some other favorite stories I had, like Pit of Doom and Kit and the Pirates. And then I also loved the newspaper story The Rat Must Die. So it will be a hard time for me to figure out which one I love the most. And the last issue. Here is another cover by Henrik Sahlström. It's okay, but I don't think it really connects to the story that well. The story being The Secret of the Ocean Floor, the third ever produced Team Fantomen story, written and art by Bertil Wilhelmsson. I enjoyed the art quite a lot, and it really works in color. The story and the dialogue were not as great though. No depth in the characters, and the dialogue felt clunky. Team Fantomen has come a long way since this. Second story is a Cyberry story, Sunday, The Great Web of Spidera, that has been reprinted several times. The last time is in 2000 in Sweden. I would love to see something that hasn't been published so many times. And why choose black and white? It's a Sunday story. I don't understand the reasoning behind this one, but oh well. And the worst part. The next issue seems to be more of the same. One Bertil story and one Cyberry story that have been reprinted 7 times, I think. It's The Mysterious Passenger by Bertil Wilhelmsson and The Treasure of the Skull Cave by Cyberry. But it included the competition for the best cover of last year. I have also written a short guide on that in the Chronicle Chambers homepage, so go there and check it out. That's all from me. Happy Fantoming.
All right. Thanks very much, mate. Well, that is fantastic. I'm sure when I listen to that, when you send it through, I'm going to really enjoy what you've said there. So how good is it having Mickael do these reviews for us, Germ?
Yeah, it is. It's brilliant. I think it's increased our listenership. It's increased everyone's knowledge about the comics. And I've actually heard people say that they've started picking up and subscribing to it because of our podcast. So, yeah, that's a good enough reason.
All right. Well, Egmont, if you'd like to give us that, 0.1% of every sale or something, we'd be happy to take it. Look, while we're on the topic, I guess, of other people reviewing, we would love if there's a Norwegian fan out there who'd like to pick up the mantle for Fantomet, a Hungarian fan for Kokas, I think, is the magazine. There's the Phantasmas coming out of Brazil. If you would like to review the comics that are coming out in your place and send those in to us, please get in touch. Email's probably better, chroniclechamber@gmail.com. If you are happy to do some reviews for us, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sounds good.
Because we don't get the books. We get the Australian books. We get the Frew publications, and that's where we need to move to now. We need to start talking about the Frews. And as I sort of alluded to right back, at some point in the podcast, we've got to go back to Frew 1856, the 2019 Christmas special, as the first book that we're going to review today. We might start with you, Jim. Okay, let's start with the cover. What are your thoughts on the cover?
Cover's gorgeous. I must admit, I was a little bit surprised that it didn't get higher in the best of Frew of 2019. I wonder if and we've made mention of it before. There's so many good covers that not everything can get first place.
And it was also the Christmas special, and the survey was was actually out before the comic was. So while people had seen the picture, perhaps they hadn't held the book in their hands.
Yeah. I like it. I love it. I must admit, I think this is going to be slightly controversial, but I think the cover artist, what's his name again? Is it
Clayton Barton?
Clayton Barton. I reckon he might be drawn one of the better depictions of Heloise that I've actually seen. So I like the way that he drew Heloise. So I will say that. something interesting. Now, this has been a ongoing rant from a couple of people that how Frew don't put the credits inside the comic. That has now been happening. If you're on YouTube, you can see it there. I think we've made a mention of it on social media as well. So good on Frew for doing that. We made mention of the cover, I think, in the Christmas special where we talked about how it wasn't a Christmas cover.
Yeah.
But no, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing the bad guys. Enjoy his take on the fan, and like I said, and yeah, so I really enjoyed the cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too, and for a lot of the reasons you've said. So I'm not going to dwell on that. The insides, we've got two stories that obviously we've read before. One of which we've done quite an extensive podcast on, The Reckoning of the Nomad. Really important story, I think, in the continuity in the history of the fandom, and I think we'll look back in 15, 20 years and identify that A Reckoning of the Nomad was an important story for the Phantom as a whole. So obviously we've read that in piecemeal form. How did you find reading that, and I guess The Rat Must Die as a collected format?
I didn't mind it. Now, just for those who are wanting to learn a little bit more about The Reckoning with the Nomad, episode 103 is where we actually talked with Tony and Mike and actually went into a lot of detail, and that was back in November 2018. So you might want to listen to that one.
Or go to the YouTube to watch that, because if you do that, then every time we mention a panel or a date, then you can also see the strip that we're talking about as we go.
Yeah, exactly. Rat Must Die, I enjoyed overall, but it was hard, maybe is the right way to say it. It was hard to kind of follow it week to week because it reminded me a lot of Lord of the Rings. There was a lot of walking. But in saying that, I've got original art from this story, and I absolutely love it. We've just recently published a article on our website talking about how some of these panels have been edited in the Frew as well as in the Swedish version, and also in newspapers from around Australia as well. So if you are a purist and you don't like editing and stuff like that, you might find that article interesting as well. But I love the twist at the end with the Vault of Missing Men. That's been one of my all-time favourite elements of the Phantom, and it's good to see that coming back a bit more in the last year and a half.
Oh, well, I think this was actually the story where Tony cracked the vault, if you like, on the Vault of Missing Men, brought it back into our consciousness, and the current Sunday Now is a story of the Vault of Missing Men. So he's really started to bring that back. So it's quite a good point you make about all the walking. I've just done a bit of a page count. The first 32 pages of this Frew book are basically the Phantom and the Rat travelling to where they are going. So about the next 30 pages of the rest of the story. But yeah, certainly the good first half of it is extended character development, which people will or won't like. So
yeah, it works well in a comic. Sometimes you could argue that it might be a little bit long it can be argued that it might be a little bit long in a newspaper story.
Oh, well, I'm sure there would have been people who dipped in once a month and have gone, oh, he's still walking. There seems to have been nothing happening. So when you read it in a comic book, there's a lot happening, particularly, as I said, in that character development. But as I've sort of mentioned, though, the real cherry for me was A Reckoning of the Nomad. I love this story, and I enjoyed it daily, and it was making me read the go to Comics Kingdom site daily to pick up the next panel of this and to see it as a collected story. For me, I really enjoyed it, and to be able to relive that, and in full colour too. We've got to say that the whole book's in full colour. it was really, really good. I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's probably, how should we put it? It's probably this story, and then the Death of Diana saga, which was 5 stories as one, and then probably the Terror in Moatuan, where we first saw the Python. Those 3 stories, in my opinion, are probably Tony D. Paul's crown, or like jewels in his crown. Like those 3 stories, in my opinion, are his top 3 that he's produced.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just for all of those reasons, just, you know, it's high action, high octane, high character development, opinion, you know, very important drawing and scenes like on page 119 where you've got the Phantom sitting on the throne and, you know, it looks like he's about to burst into tears and stuff like that. You know, there's just some amazing work. And the colouring actually is not bad. Sometimes with the colouring on the King Features website, it can be a little, or the Comics Kingdom website, it can be a little bit average, but on the most, the colouring in this is very well done. And the art from Mike is very good. And I like how we basically got an extra 24 pages. Instead of being 100 pages, it was 124 pages.
Yeah. Yeah, no, very good value for money, I thought, and a handy pickup in any Christmas stocking if that's how you were getting it over that break. We do need to move on, though, and the first story of 2020 that was published by Frew, the first issue, was number 1857, The Forgotten Tribe, with the cover by Jamie Johnson.
Yeah, I like the use of the colour in its cover, like with the yellow, with the purple sky and stuff like that. I also thought it was a wise decision from Jamie to ensure the Phantom was not in his protective suit. So I like that. And then we've got the protective suit on the back. So, you know, Jamie has been producing some good covers. I like this. You know, I also, another point that I do like is I like how in all of his covers he has something over the Phantom logo, and I'm pretty sure he does that on purpose but it just gives a little bit of like a 3D effect to the cover. So I like how he does that.
And particularly with this one, you know, the rearing hero is what's coming up over the Phantom logo, and it's just such a dynamic horse. I think it's the first. Jamie will probably listen to this and correct me, but it'd be one of the first heroes that he's drawn. Certainly the first I can remember on a cover, and it's just, you know, it's one of those unusual angles we've got. The perspectives, from where we're seeing the picture, the Phantom's boot is twice the size of his head, but it's because we're underneath Hero's hooves, so to speak. So, really dynamic, really inspiring cover. I quite like it.
Yeah, Jamie's not afraid of throwing out a weird or different angle. He did it with the Red Zone cover.
Yes.
Where it's dangling off the edge as well. So it would probably be more challenging, but I think that is good to see an artist challenging himself with a different type of angle to get an effective effect.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, the story then, The Forgotten Tribe. Now, this is a Mickael Soul story, so it's the first time published, I should say, in a Frew comic. Mickael Soul, the publisher of Fantomen Stories, as he sort of suggested in his podcast with us, is increasingly getting involved in the writing and arguably is the head of the writing team now, I think. And we've also got a new artist in Janus Orden is drawing Phantom comics for us to see for the first time. So your thoughts on the story, Jim?
I liked it. It's very, what's the word? It's a very typical Phantom story with a forgotten tribe, and there's a fair few common Phantom elements in it, but in saying that, there's differences that I enjoyed. Like there's a little bit of humor, like like the guys being naked, and that's not humorous, but just the way that's been done. And then there was the bit where the Phantom's bashing up the bad guys, and on page 21 where a guy's chucking a leak and he thinks, maybe I should have let him finish that first because he's probably got it all over himself. Interesting that the Phantom actually shoots someone in the knee instead of shooting the guns out. But, there's page 23, you're right, Sherlock. Page 25 where, the third sentence that he learned was, was quite humorous and stuff like that as well. So there was some nice humorous elements in there that I quite liked. But in saying that, I think some of the editing was could have been done a little bit better. On page 25, for instance, it says, some of our people will stay with me and build a new city, and some will follow Talu to Morristown. I think that probably should have read village or home instead of city. So there was a couple of those. I think there was another one earlier on as well. But I'm nitpicking there. Overall, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed Janice's artwork as well, but I'll let you talk about the story, and then you can go to the artwork if you want.
Oh, look, I think you've covered the story well. I quite enjoyed it as well for all the sort of reasons. It's got a lot of folk tropes and but also moving in a modern direction, so there's no drama there. It's an authentic Phantom. In terms of the artwork, I really liked some panels, and there were other panels I just didn't get at all. So, so for instance, if I look on page 12, some of the silhouette work on the Phantom and Garan in particular at the bottom there, the Phantom higher up on the page, awesome. Just fantastic. That's a really good use of colours. Oh, sorry, not colours. The black and the white in particular. I guess I'm not. I didn't. The protective suit I wasn't a massive fan of. I understood it for the plot line. But then when I look at, and I guess it's unfortunate it's on the very first page, so page 4 of the story, the Phantom as he sort of looks up, I guess you're trying to demonstrate he's got a cold, and so he's snarling his face or whatever. I find sometimes that the Scandinavian artists, I think, sort of overdraw the face. You don't need to try and put a line for every emotion. I don't know. That's some of the. It's a cheap criticism, I suppose, but that's just what I thought at this stage. As I say, far more hit than miss, though. And as for someone who's doing his first story, super loads of potential, obviously.
Yeah, one of the things I liked about it is that it looks brilliant in black and white.
Yeah, it does.
Sometimes you see artwork that's meant for colour, which this is, and then it gets done to black and white, and it kind of loses something. Where, in my opinion, this, and I've got the original in colour, in my opinion, this looks better in black and white than it does in colour.
Yeah, right.
It's darker, it's grittier. I really enjoy it.
Cool. All right. Now, you mentioned earlier that you wanted to talk about Heart of Darkness. You had something to say there, which is good because, once again, I've got very little to say about Heart of Darkness. What are your thoughts on it at the moment?
Okay, so this is the problem that I have with Heart of Darkness, and I've said it before, so I won't harp on it too much. But this is the only part we've got. This was in 2 months' time, and it's hard to build momentum when you get 4 pages a month. And then going back with what I said earlier, when we were talking about Jeremy McPherson's and Philip Madden's short story that was voted as one of the best stories by Frew readers, Frew should be heartened by that fact, and that there is potential in creating good short stories that fans will like. So I'm one of the biggest, what would you call it, biggest supporters of Heart of Darkness. But yeah, the sooner this finishes, probably the better, because, the Frew schedule is not doing this story justice.
And I guess we need to acknowledge that it is still a hangover of something that was started before Glenn and Renee and Dudley took over. It was a decision made by the previous regime that they were going to embark on Heart of Darkness in this way. And to an extent, Frew have been kind of stuck with it. We've talked to Glenn. It's well documented the decisions they're trying to make around it. Dudley's talked about it in his messages from the publishers before as well. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if they too are kind of keen to get it over and done with. And I would think that 2020 should see it out. We're chapter 6,
It'll
part
be
5.
very
and
close.
Yeah, so there's like one more chapter. So hopefully this time next year we're starting to go, okay, well, what's the new stuff that's coming in as the filler stories? We'll move on and see if a trade paperback ever arises or what. So anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to the annual, the 2020 annual, the Isle of Eden special. Now, this was a 228-page book with a wonderful Massimo Gamberi cover. He's got the Phantom overlooking the jungle and down on his animals on both front and back. It came with there's 7 stories inside, each of them themed to the Isle of Eden. 9 stories inside, each of them themed to the Isle of Eden, beginning with the Wilson McCoy story, The Honeymooners, which was the origin story, if you like, of the Isle, appropriately established with Adam and Eve as the 2 main characters and the people who stay on the island. We also have Fluffy, which is obviously the story of the lion, Old Baldy, the elephant, Old Baldy, the gorilla, the rogue elephant, Jumba, the story of his, Master of Eden, Blackie, Dinosaur, which is introduces Steggy, and also Drama on Eden. So that was the 9 stories that made up the book. At the end, it's also got, I guess, the difference between Frew and Egmont or Fantomen is that Egmont publish their calendar in advance, whereas the Frew's annuals sort of look back at the year that was, and here's what was in that. So that's at the back as well. So that's a handy reference point for people.
It's the first time they've done that for a while, because they used to always do it, but they haven't. They used to
always do it.
They haven't done it for the last year or 2.
Yeah, maybe not. It seems very familiar as soon as I look at it, but you might be right. I don't know that I did see it last year.
Yeah, but no, the cover's really nice. I really enjoy the cover. Gamberi is one of those type of guys that everyone enjoys his work. The piece he did for the Bushfire Appeal got snuffled up really, really quickly, which is no surprise. It's good to see Steggy the dinosaur. Need a bit of love for Steggy the dinosaur. I think we need some T-shirts or stickers or maybe some little figurines or something like that, because I'm sure they'll be a hit with some of the people, some of the fans.
Well, they certainly would be a hit with my boy, because Gus. And what I will splice in here at some point is his review. I'm not going to review the book and the stories because he's keen to. It started with him, and we'll mention in a moment the Kid Phantom special that came with the book. But it started with him saying, "So, Dad, am I going to do the review on the podcast for Kid Phantom?" When I said, "Yeah, okay, that's good. I'm happy for you to do that." And then because he devoured that as soon as we opened the plastic packaging. And I'd only read about 3. I was probably halfway through the 4th story in the annual, and he came and said, "Well, can I read that?" And so he did, and he sat down in he must have started at lunch and finished in bed later that night. Finished the whole story. Just read the whole 9 stories in an afternoon and evening, and he just really loved it. So anyway, I won't say any more about that. I'll let him say it himself.
Yeah, well, let's listen to him now, and then I'll have a bit of a go as well.
Cool. What I want to talk about is the 2020 annual, the big Phantom story, the Isle of Eden special. Now,
Yes.
First up, what did you think of the book? What did you think of the cover?
Oh, I thought I hadn't heard of the Isle of Eden before, but I knew the Phantom had a island of animals, and so I guess that's what it was.
Now, did you pick this up and think, oh, this is too big, I can't read this big story?
No.
What did you think?
I thought I'll have this done pretty quickly.
And you did. You sat down and read it all in a day.
Yeah. It was really interesting.
What makes you say that?
Well, it shows most of the people, most of how all the animals came, like Steggy, and there was also the Monsters. Yeah. It was really good.
So, did you think it was going to be one big story? Did you realise it was lots of little stories?
I didn't realise that it was lots of little ones, but yeah.
And did you have a favourite of the 9 stories that were in there? Here's a list of them at the front in the contents page. Do you remember having a favourite of all of those?
It would probably be Dinosaur,
Why is that?
because that was one of the only stories I had read before I read Isle of Eden. Mm-hmm. Like, you read it when you used to read me bedtime stories. I was really interested in all the Phantom comics, so you said I'll read you a Phantom comic tonight, and it was that one.
That's right. I'm impressed you remember that. That was a long time ago. All right. So, did you enjoy reading all about the Isle of Eden?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it shows how it's really good because all of the animals don't eat each other. Like it said in the first one, you can see a gazelle and a tiger, a lion, sitting right next to each other without doing anything.
It wasn't all just nice stories about animals, though. There was plenty of bad guys who were going to come and shoot the animals and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
Did you like that part of the story?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I forgot what you said.
Oh, like the actions parts of the story where there were bad guys coming to try and hunt the animals, or
Oh, I didn't really like those bits, no.
which bits did you like most?
How they figured out how to transport them. How they transported them to the thing. Like, with the rogue elephant, they just swam across because the piranhas that were in the lake, they couldn't bite the skin of that one, of the elephant, because it was really rough. I think they could also swim across with with Steggy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, this is probably the first, you've read lots of kid Phantom stories, but this is probably the first adult Phantom comic book that you've sat and read?
Probably the third.
The third, but the first big book with 9 stories in it.
Yeah,
It's the
definitely.
most Phantom comics you've ever read at a one time, yeah?
Yeah.
So, are you keen to read it again? Do you want to read more stories? Because these are all quite old stories. They're from the 1960s. 1960 is the first story through to 1990. That's they're very old stories. Did you still like them?
Yeah. I did have one question about it though.
Yeah.
About the first story. Has the author just chosen Adam and Eve as names for the people on purpose, or just because it was the first names they could think of?
What do you reckon?
I think it was on purpose, yeah.
Why would those names be on purpose for that story?
I'm not sure.
Probably because it's Eden. Well, Adam and Eve were in Eden, remember, in the Bible story?
Oh,
You didn't know that?
yeah. No.
You can tell what sort of stories we were mostly reading as bedtime stories then. Not a lot of Bible stories. Cool. All right. Any other comments that you'd like to make about this book, the special?
Not really. It's a really good book, and I'd look forward to more.
Cool.
And figuring out where the second cave monster came from.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because it shows you the story of his, but not hins,
Hers.
hers, and rooks.
How do you know about hers and rooks?
The poster.
Very good.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for your time today, Gus. Appreciate
You're
you
welcome.
talking to us for the podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day and hope you have some happy phantoming.
Happy Fantomen!
Thanks, Gus. All right, so thank you, Angus, our second correspondent for this podcast. So
I think they're trying to put us out of a job, mate. All those correspondents.
I'd be happy enough with that. It's all good.
You raised a brilliant point when you were talking about your son. And for those who don't know, how old is your son? Putting you on the spot here, Dan. But,
10
how
10
old
and a
is your
half.
son? Do you know? Okay. 10 and a half?
Yeah, 10 and a half.
By the way, that pause was not him thinking about it. I actually asked him while I was in the middle of taking a drink. And if you don't believe me, you can check it out on YouTube to make sure that he didn't stuff up as a father. The point you make is that this annual has the kids and the younger audience in mind, where the last year's annual was a darker, a grittier annual. The cover was darker, the stories were a little bit darker and grittier, which I loved. For me, it was the best. Annual probably didn't excite me as much, but I think the younger generation, who, let's face it, Frew, need to get on involved. So if you're an old fuddy-duddy and you don't like it, get over yourself. But I think this annual will be a pivotal annual for a lot of the next generation because of the beautiful stories inside. They're fun. The drawings are fun. The stories are fun. The messages, involved with it. It's got animals. Everyone loves animals. It's got a poster. Like seriously, like this poster will be stuck up on so many kids' bedrooms' walls. I just put some posters up on my kids' walls today, and they've all got animals or they've got fun people and stuff like that. There's a reason why I didn't show this poster to my kids.
Gus saw it so it's up in his room.
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't even got to the kids' annual. Now, I do want to say something before I get to the kids' Phantom. Lee Falk has made a mistake. He with the animals by Fuzzy and Stripes, also Queenie, they are not Tigon cubs. They are called Liger cubs. And it's all done by who the father is. So if the father is a lion, the L-I in the name goes first. So I know people think that, Lee Falk, they worship what he's walked and all that, but he made a mistake here. But I understand why Frew gone with Tigon, because that's actually what's in the actual comic. So we'll let that one pass. But Lee Falk, you made a mistake.
Well, he might have made a deliberate decision back in the day, in the 80s, or early 80s, when he introduced them, that Tiggins read better in the book and looked more likely as a combined word than Liger, which could be seen as a typo with only the one letter. I'm scratching, I know, but I shall defend the great man to my dying breath.
Yeah, all right. Well, yeah, you're wrong as well, but let's move on. The Kids Phantom special. Now, Frew made a brilliant point that the aim of this is for it not to sit in people's collections. It's not to sit in us fuddy-duddies collections. It is, the whole purpose of it is to go to the younger generation. You know, and it's a perfect introductory comic for the next generation. It's fun. It's targeted towards the younger generation. So if you're, you know, over the, like, it's probably because you're an old fart, and it's not targeted towards you. But I really enjoyed it. It's got a great message. The art is fun. The art is story. I love the little tidbits in there. Like there's a little Easter egg on page 7, which 7 and 9. I'll let people find those for themselves. You know, I read it and I'm just like, yeah, I enjoy that. To me, this would be one of the better Kid Phantom stories I've read. I want to go from there.
Okay.
Not the best one, but one of the top ones that I've read.
Well, I'll insert Gus's review of it here, so you'll hear what he has to say. But just, hey?
We already did a bit, and let's listen to him here, and then he went. We did that.
Oh
before.
well, I might. I don't know how I'm going to cut it together at this stage. I'm making it up in my head as I go that he's just reviewed the annual, and now we're talking about Kid Phantom special. So this is where I paste that bit in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So anyway, just before he goes, what I'll say about it is, I understand why adults read it and said it was cliched to them because they've seen those themes before and all the rest of it. And they probably have because they're adults and they've read lots of things. But if you're thinking about who is this book actually targeted to, and, you know, for someone who perhaps is either a Kid Phantom fan or has even never read Kid Phantom at all or any Phantom comic books, then it's a cool little story. And the themes are good. Angus is about to tell you what he got out of it, but it's a nice, wholesome story, which does unashamedly also serve as a bit of an ad for Kid Phantom itself and reading Phantom comic books. So what's wrong with that? That's
how comics were back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Yeah.
You know, we've got an interesting podcast where this actual point gets mentioned. I think it's about 2 podcasts down the track, where he talks about that at the back of a normal comic, back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, they would introduce new characters and they would be heavily themed about lifestyle and morals and stuff like that. You know, all these old fuddy-duddies that are having a bit of a sook now, that's how they got into the Phantom and how they got into that's how they got into it back, you know, back when dinosaurs were still roaming the earth and stuff like that. And now that they're out of the end of the bridge, they've forgotten about their origin story. And, you know, it's not targeted to you. Not every comic needs to be to you. So,
that said, I did think that Dudley probably was a bit heavy-handed in the way he tried to sell it in the message from the publisher. I thought that came across as a little bit desperate, if I'm going to use a strong word.
Yep.
And it probably was a bit over the top, to be honest. I don't think that it needed that level of sales. I think it just needed to be a little bit more organic and just let that one go. But anyway, that was my interpretation.
I would agree that it was desperate. but I wouldn't agree. But I would agree that I reckon that was a very measured approach from Dudley. I reckon probably the first draft of his message from the publisher would have been.
You're absolutely right there. I hadn't thought about the first draft.
Yeah, this is the finished. This is the finished copy. I reckon the first draft would have been a lot more fun to read and a lot more direct.
Yeah.
So I've got to give Dudley credit, and I think people need to be reminded every so often. And he did it in the message of the publisher with the Forgotten Tribe, which is 1857 as well. He talks about, okay, you're about to look at an artist, a new artist. His drawing's not like Cy Barry, but that's okay. And
Yeah.
I think it's good for people to read things like that. And I think, and I know we're living in a very sensitive world today, but I think it's okay for people to be told that occasionally change can be okay.
All right. Well, speaking of things that are not changing, unless there's anything else that you want to say about the annual?
No. I liked it. I liked themed annuals. I liked how it was towards the kids. I'm interested to see what they bring in next. And I like the fact that we've got rid of the replica. I would much rather see something like that, whether it's introducing the Phantom, Kid Phantom, another character next year, or something like that. I liked it, and it's much better than a replica that you don't actually read.
Yep. And look, I'll agree with you because on the basis of how much fun that Angus has had with the book and the fact this one is now going to become his reading copy. I'm going to have to go and buy another couple, one for me to read and one because this is going to get destroyed as a book because he's going to read it over and over and it'll be something that, hopefully it's, it's the first set of adult, if you like, or grown-up Phantom stories that he's read and really got into, and I guess it's the Eden theme, obviously. But so from that point of view, if from nothing else, it's been a real winner.
Yep.
All right, now things that haven't changed though, and I guess, and this is the point, isn't it? Because the very next issue is 1859, the Collector's Replica series, and so if you are a August, if you like only reading the old stories and that sort of thing, the very next issue is for you. So that's kind of the point, that Frew are doing a great job of catering for all audiences. Now, a lot of people who are, jumping on the modern stories and that sort of thing might look at this and go, oh, well, who cares? It's just another replica. It's that old chestnut. But I guess the point is that they're catering for everybody. Yeah,
and I think, as much as I hate to admit it, but, you're right. There are people out there that love these replicas. I'm not one of them. But Frew have to, while they have to target the next generation, they also have to keep happy as much as they can their largest buying demographic, which is all the old farts which are over 50. And these replica series, it keeps them happy. They have to, and we've said a million times, and we've given ideas on how they can make it an even better comic. But these sell, so as much as I hate to admit it, I think we're going to be stuck with these until we count down.
Yeah, and look, if it means that someone who has picked up the annual and loves it picks up the next story as well, I'm talking about a young someone. There's nothing in here that you wouldn't let a 10-year-old read. So if they were to suddenly start falling in love with the old folk stories as well, then that's only a good thing too.
Yeah. You're just gonna have to
all right, no.
Every comic, mate.
Sorry?
You're going to have to start buying 2 of every comic so you can Angus' reading copy.
Yeah, the only way for him to pay for it is for me to increase his pocket money, so I lose either way. So, yeah. I should have said that the 1859 actually included, 5 stories? Lego the Light God, Strange Fisherman, Dragon God, The Young Phantom, and Queen Pera the Perfect, all by Lee Falk, and a mixture of McCoy and Raymore artwork. Yeah. Full disclosure, didn't read it. We've been too busy doing other things to have read that story. So no review of the content, more just the concept.
A positive, and what is it called? It's called the compliment sandwich or something like that, where you start with a positive, do the negative, and do another positive. Is that the quality of the print inside is actually readable. It's, so you can actually read the stories and, get something out of it. It's not like they're bad quality reprints. So that is a positive.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So nothing else to say there?
No, let's move on.
Very good. All right. Well, moving on is moving out. We're just about done. That brings us up to date with all of the comics. As I've said, if you've got Fantomet or Cockass or Phantasma stories that you would like to review and send in for us, then by all means, we'd be happy to listen to them and probably include them in the podcast as well. But in the meantime, that just about taps us out of and brings us up to date.
For now.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that. We've got to try and get this. We're recording this on a Saturday. We've got to try and get it out before Thursday when the next comic comes out, because the publishing schedule doesn't sleep, which we love. But keeps us busy.
It does.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in today and listening to us waffle again about fandom comics and everything that we love about the comics and news that has happened recently. If you would like to support what we do, then we'd love you to jump on board Patreon. The book, I guess, the Bushfire book in particular, is consuming some funds, and we've still got the web hosting and the bandwidth for the podcast and everything else that we do that costs money. So if you'd like to be able to jump on and support us, we'd love to see you on Patreon there. Big thank you to our newest Patreon, Joshua Robards. Great to have you on board, Joshua. I hope you enjoy the Phantom Preservation Project, which you now have access to, the P3, and anyone who is a Patreon for $5 a month or more will get on and be able to see what is our digital treasure trove of all things Phantom, which we have preserved, I guess, for future generations. If they get taken down, they remain in our vault there, so to speak. You can get to the Patreon. Oh, I should mention that there's a prize coming up, the seasonal prize coming up at the end of summer. And aren't we all looking forward to the end of summer at the moment? Patrons particularly, I guess, because there's a prize coming up at the end of it where we do a random prize draw amongst the Patreon supporters. And what is the autumn prize that you've got lined up for us, Jim?
The autumn prize, hang on, give me 2 seconds and I'll dig them out and show the YouTube people. It is literally so now most people would be aware of Jeff Weigel, who is the Sunday artist. We have some so if you're on YouTube, you can see it now. Basically, it's some roughs of what he does before they go up on. So they start off with a little pen sketch, then they get larger, and then they get scanned in, and then he digitalizes them. So there's 2 of them. And then this is the second one here. So as you said, every season we do a draw, and the autumn prize is basically going to be those, and we ship them out to you for free. So we'll have a post telling people about that probably in the next week or so, maybe a little bit after this is posted. And basically, if you're not a Patreon and that excites you, and then you also want to get early access to the Bushfire book and all the others, the Mickael Lyck surprise, almost blew it.
Well done.
It's time to jump on Patreon.
Yeah, absolutely. For American listeners, autumn means fall, and it's the season that comes after summer. So I know it's not about to be fall over there. It's probably spring or something. You weirdos being on the other side of the world there. But anyway, the change of season means a prize for the Patreons. To keep up with what we're doing, other than the website, as I said, you can check us out on social media. We're on Facebook. Just search chroniclechamber.com. We're also the curators of the Phantom Collector Group, and so you can jump on there and meet a lot of other fans and that sort of thing. We're on Twitter at Chronicle_tweet. We're on Instagram at Chronicle Chamber. If you've got anything in particular you'd like to get in touch with us about, by all means, email is probably the best way to make sure we definitely see it, which will be chroniclechamber@gmail.com. And I hope you've enjoyed listening to the podcast. If you have, and you're keen to hear more about the book when it comes out, and some of the special interviews that we've got coming. Jermaine's already said we've got Swaroop as an Indian fan coming up soon. Did you say that, or did I make that up?
No, we've got that.
You did say that. Yep.
We've got an interview in American Creator. And then we've got a couple of others with if you're a Frew or a Fantomen reader in the mid-90s, we got a fairly big name coming up from there as well.
Yes. Is it too much to tease that the American creator is going to help us fill in some stories about Moonstone?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, there's a few little. I reckon. Mr. MB will give us a few nice little tidbits.
Well, if you can't work it out from there, well, you should subscribe so that it just lands in your iTunes inbox, or via whatever app you use, whether it's Spotify, Podbean, Player FM, Cast Notes, Listen Notes. I don't know. They may or may not even exist anymore. There's probably new podcast apps. You're probably listening to us via that. Whatever it is, I hope you press subscribe, and so you can jump on board next time we put a podcast out. Anyway, all that said, it's been a big night. It's been a big weekend. There's lots more to be done so we can get this book off for approval. So, Jermaine, thank you very much for your time tonight. As always, it's been a pleasure doing some phantoming with you.
It always is. I'm looking forward to going to bed and getting some Z's. Happy
Absolutely,
phantoming, everyone.
Happy phantoming, mate. Good night.
500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die." The Phantom, the ghost who walks. The Phantom, enemies beware. The Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds